Hi, Ann Cornick from Paint and Porcelain. I'm here to teach beginners how to get started in China painting. Now, we're working on a wild rose tea tile, and this is how it came out after the first fire. You can look at the previous video to see how we did this. And now we're going to start working on the background and the shading on this. Okay, you can get a study on my Paint and Porcelain website. That's paint with the letter N and then porcelain.com. And the information is in the box below if you want to get to the site. And you can go under studies on that site and you can look up the Wild Rose study for beginners, and it's free. So you would go in and purchase it as if you were buying an item. And when you get to the end, instead of charging you, it won't charge you anything, but it will automatically, since it's digital, download to your computer so that you can then click on the links that are in the study, and they will take you back to the videos that correspond with that section of the study. Each study has all the tools listed. It has all the paints that you will need and colors listed. It also has a line drawing to get you started so you can trace this onto your piece. And it also has a link to each of the YouTube videos so that you can go and work along with me if you've forgotten how to do anything. Okay, so we're going to get started today. I'm going to tilt you down so you can see what we're working on. Now this is my work area. I have the paper towel, my tile, my paints, and the tile I'm going to paint on. And I'm going to start with my number 10 brush. I'm doing something a little unorthodox. First I clean my brush, then I dip it in a little bit of oil, painting medium. And what I'm doing that's a little bit unorthodox is I'm going to start with the background on this. That way, if we go over the leaves, it won't matter. Then we're going to wipe out the leaves and flowers and finish them off. So it's a little bit different than what a lot of people will tell you, but it will, I think, give you a better outcome. So I started by full loading in my mixing yellow, and I'm just going to put it up in this area. And the reason I'm doing that, I'm using a back and forth hatch stroke on the very end of my brush. I'm holding it and I'm going back and forth, blending it until I get a nice even blend there. I'm going to clean my brush because I don't want any of that yellow mixed in with my blues that I'm going to use next. Add a little more of the oil, and I'm going to full load with my baby blue, and I'm going to go in and start putting the baby blue right up against the yellow. Now I'm going over the leaves and the flowers, but we can wipe those out later. I just want to make sure that we get the color blended nicely. So now you can see I'm moving back on my brush and I'm lightly blending it to try to get that color so that it runs into the yellow but doesn't get rid of the yellow. Oops, I have a little hair there. Never let hairs get on your piece. Lift them off, make sure they're gone, and then go back and work some more. Okay, now I got a little bit of blue here and I really didn't want it, so I can pull it out a little. And I'll pull out the blue back there. So I'm just doing that little hatch stroke that I told you about. And I'm going around. Now you notice I went up to the top of the piece because I want to kind of surround the piece with the blue. And you can look at it if you think you need a little more blue up there, you can add it. It's entirely up to you. I mean, it's your piece, so you're going to have to decide what you want it to look like. If you're infringing on the yellow too much, you can start by pulling down away from the yellow too, and that might help. Okay, now we're going to continue with the baby blue around the edge here and over the stem. little more oil. You see how my paint is dragging and building up on the piece? I don't want that. So I just added a little oil to it, and that helps smooth it out. Now make sure you get the areas the way you want them, because once you get, and you can practice on your tile before you, on your paint tile before you get up here. If you're worried about the colors or you're not doing a good stroke. But make sure you work on your paint while it's still wet. As soon as it sets up, it's going to leave a line. So you want to make sure that you kind of work on both sides at the same time here. You notice here I'm coming over the stem. I'm trying not to get on the leaves, but if I do, it's like no big deal, because one of the things that I really want to do is get this blue on the background all the way around. There we go. Now, if you have a couple of little white patches here and there, that's fine. Then you're going to take your brush and kind of do a straight stroke, trying to smooth everything out. Make sure it's not lumpy and bumpy, that it's not too cloudy looking. You want it very smooth if you can get it smooth. Okay, now I've come down about this far, and down here I'm going to have a shadow. So I'm going to bring this blue down a little further on this side. There you go. And then I'm going to switch over to Copenhagen blue. Now, if you don't have these colors, you can purchase them on my website. I have a starter set. It includes these colors: mixing yellow, yellow brown, moss green, warm brown green, baby blue, Copenhagen blue, so it's a light and dark of everything, ivory, a rich brown or a finishing brown. They're similar, and so some sets have one, some sets have the other. Pompadour and blood red, believe it or not, this is the darker. Violet and royal violet, this is the darker. White and black. So if you want to purchase that set, that's available on my website, and the link is below, under supplies. And you can certainly find the supplies you're looking for. There are also these mini palettes, like I'm using here, there. And as you can see, it holds the paints quite nicely for that smallest set of paints. So it gives you a good starter set. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, that's perfect. I'm going to clean my brush again. I don't need to, but I'm going to, because I want to go into my Copenhagen blue. And I'm going to use the Copenhagen blue around the bottom of this flower here. It's a darker blue, so it's going to give me a darker look. And I'm going to start tracing around my flower with my brush. Copenhagen blue sets up a little stronger, so you may find it drags a little. If it does, add a little more oil in your paint. But you don't want your paint oily. You want your paint to be fairly like toothpaste, kind of. You want it to have a little bit of drag to it, because too much oil and it will run when you put it in the kiln. So I'm doing the same thing here. I'm doing the same thing all the way around. I'm just taking and adding my color. And you can just kind of pat the color on if you want. And then as long as you get your hand back on your brush, you can start lightly blending it. Now, I know it's easy for me to say I'm not a beginner. So if you do have problems with this, you'll have to practice perhaps. You can wipe off any mistakes that you don't like, or you could wipe off and start over again if you really don't like what you've done. But the purpose of China painting is to try to get the piece as, as pretty as you can. So now I'm side loading with the Copenhagen, and I'm going to go back and just add a little more depth closer to the flower. Oops, sorry. I'll turn it this way so you can see it. Notice there was a glare on there. Okay. So you can see this is what we have so far. We have the yellow up in here. We have a blue around it. The baby blue is predominantly in this area here. And then the darker blue is under the bottom of this. Okay. Now this is very important. I'm going to clean my brush. When I clean my brush, I hit it against the side of my mineral spirits and I press it really well. If I see any color on my towel, I'll do it again. Press it out until you get hardly any marks on your towel. And then you're going to go back in, and wherever you went over the flower, you're just going to take and wipe it out. Use the edge of your brush to wipe it out, just to the end of the flower. Over here, I have a leaf that I went over. I'm going to wipe it out. You see how much different that leaf looks when I wipe it out? Here, I went over that leaf. I'm going to wipe that out. I went over this leaf, so I'm going to wipe that out. I went over the edge of this flower. You're going to keep wiping it on your towel to keep the paint off of it. And if it gets so that it's not lifting the paint, go back in, use the mineral spirits, and pull towards the center of whatever, wherever the color is on here, because that's what you want to do. You want to pull towards the color. You don't want to pull into the background, or you'll lift a lot of the background. See here, I'm pulling towards this way. I'm pulling towards this way. Up here, I'm going to just hit the edges of it. Wipe it off. Here I'm going to pull a little bit of the color off. Here I'm going to pull a little bit of the color off. And then I'm going to go up here into my upper leaves, and I'm going to pull towards the base, wipe it off on my towel, pull with the side edge of it towards the base, and same thing here, side edge of it towards the base. Okay, so now I've gotten all the blue off of my flowers and my leaves pretty well. Now I'm going to put the blue back on the leaves. I'm going to take my Copenhagen blue, and I'm only going to side load. Now, before I do that, I think I'm going to switch. This is a 1/4 inch brush, and it's metal furrow, as you can see. I'm going to switch to this because sometimes using a smaller brush is better. If you find that as you're working with this, you can't manage with the larger brush, you can always go to the smaller brush. We're going to take the blue, this is Copenhagen blue, and we're just going to do the base of our leaves. Let me show you what I'm doing here. Kind of hard to see. We're going to go and we're going to hit the base of our leaves to the center, stop, and then finish the edge like that. We're going to go to the base of the leaves, to the center. And if you stop at the center, you'll get a little line. Oh, that's exaggerated, but I think you can see it there. It's right there. And that will actually be your vein on your leaf. Although we're going to put veins in with a liner in just a minute. So don't worry, you don't really need to get the vein in if you don't. You're going to do it to the center and stop. And then just do the very edge there. Let me show you again. You're going to go to the center and stop. And then you're going to go to the edge. See how the blue gives you a shadow that goes underneath the flower? Now, with this particular flower, there are 2 petals there. And I want to separate them. So with the blue still loaded on here, I'm just going to quickly go like that. And that gives you a separation between those flowers. I just pull it up quickly. I have another hair on here, so let me get it off. There we go. Guess my brushes are shedding these days. Okay. I'm going to go back in my oil. Go back into my Copenhagen. And I'm going to go to this leaf right here. And I'm going to pull to the center and pull away from the center. just lightly. It does. You just want a little bit of shadow there. Pull towards the center, pull away. Pull towards the center. Pull away. And here again, I can go into that flower a little bit, give a little separation. I only have a couple more. It's this one up here that needs it. Pull towards the center, pull away. Okay. And then I have a few over on this side I'm going to do it with. This is still the Copenhagen blue. You're going to pull towards the center. Oops, I need a little more oil. It's starting to drag. Pull towards the center. Ah, it's a little too much. And then pull away. Pull towards the center, pull away. Pull towards the center, pull away. Okay. Now I'm going to do the tips of these leaves. Again, with a light Copenhagen. I'm just going to go and outline the tips. That one's a little heavy. See how heavy that came out? So I'm going to wipe my brush and gently pull across it to get it a little bit lighter. Here I'm just going to pull up the side and the end there. Here I'm going to come up the side and do the end. Here's one over here. I'm going to pull up the side here and do the end. Pull up the side here and do the end. Oops. Here. Here I'm just going to touch the end. Here I'm just going to pull up the side and touch the end. Here I'm just going to touch the end. Touch the end. This one really doesn't need it, so I'm not going to do it. You don't have to do it. You could also, if you wanted to, take a little bit of pompadour, just a tad, and put a little bit of pompadour on your brush, and you get a little bit of that red. And you could do that on maybe one or two of these. Here, I'll show you here. It'll have a little more red in it. Can you see how I got the little bit of red in this one here? Okay. Alrighty. Clean our brush. I'm going to stick with the 1/4 inch because now I'm going to go in and I'm going to put the pompadour back in the shadows on these roses. So keep your hand to the outside here and you're going to just come back and do the base like you did before. Do the base like you did before here. And then for this one, I think I'm just going to do the top. Then you get back on your brush and lightly pull it just so it's not so harsh. You see here it's a little bit harsh. Can you see how it's a little bit harsh? I'm just going to lightly pull it. That helps it a lot. Now, under here, I'm going to take my liner, make sure it's clean, and I'm just going to take a little bit of the blue and put it under here and down the side here, and maybe a little on the sides. Oops, that's not working very well. Let me get it here. A little on the sides here. Need more oil. And a little on the side here. And that just gives you a little bit of shadow. And I'm done with that. Okay, let's do the veins in the leaves. We're going to get our liner, put a little bit of the blue. You can mix it in with a little bit of the warm green or the moss green, whichever you prefer. And you're going to, I'm going to get close so you can see. You're going to pull from here to here. Oh, that didn't come out very well. Let me get it a little darker. I'm going to go from here to here, here to here. Lift at the end, make it a light stroke, a quick stroke. Then you can go back and do these little side veins. Pull them out, but pull them so they go towards the front. Can you see what I've done there? It's these 4 right here that I put the veins in on. I'm going to take the blue again, mix it with the warm brown green. I'm going to go over here. Now this one has a center vein on it already. So I'm just going to pull a couple out to the side and vary it. Sometimes you want one on one side, sometimes you want one on 2 sides. Here, same thing. I'm just going to pull a couple out and pull a couple out there. Can you see how I've done that? Okay. And then I'm going to pull a vein here, 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 and then I'm just going to pull these little tiny veins, 1, 2, whatever you want, just to make it look. And there you have it. They all have a little bit of veining on them now. You're also going to touch up any of the little branches that maybe got a little neglected or didn't quite touch where they needed to be. Okay, now we're going to go back to we'll try the 1/2 inch brush first. We'll see if this works. I'm dipping it in my my mineral spirits and then in my medium, and I'm going into my pompadour. And in this case, I'm going to start with the side flower. That's this flower over here. And I'm going to make sure I know which side my dark is on, and I'm going to go around that petal and then pull the color in. Okay. And then I'm going to take and go around the base. Remember how we did this before? These are the short little choppy strokes around the base. If your paint starts to wear off, you won't need as much heavy paint as you had the first time. So if your paint starts to wear off a little bit, there's nothing wrong with that. And you do it at the base. And then wipe your brush off and just lightly pull it towards the edge. Can you see what I did there? They look kind of choppy, like this one looks really choppy. Now I'm just going to pull it lightly towards the edge and pull this one lightly towards the edge. And then this one I'm going to pull down, and this one I'm going to pull down. I'm going to take a little more pompadour, and I'm just going to do the edges. Go around the outside. Wherever I think it needs it, like here could use a little. This petal is not as pronounced as the other one. There should be a separation right here between these two, and I don't have it. So I'm going to clean my brush real quickly, go into my Copenhagen, and just add a little separation there. There we go. You can use Copenhagen to kind of help you with the separation. Alrighty, cleaning again. We're going to do the same thing now on the main flower. And the main flower we go to last because we don't want to mess it up. So you start with the ones you don't care as much about that are more in the background, and then you end up with the main flower. Now this one has a turnover at the top, and it's not readily apparent. We haven't wiped it out yet, so we're going to have to. Oops, that's way too dark. See how dark I got that? So you want it a little bit lighter, so you can either pull it or you can clean it on your towel so that it's a little bit lighter. And I'm going to go through this. Visualize where your petals are, and if necessary, bring the paint along the side that has the shadow so that it helps set those petals apart. But you're going around the base and around the base here. And then you're going to take and lightly pull it out. Lightly pull it out. And then finally, well, let's do this next. Let's wipe out these turnovers, okay? There's a turnover right up here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right above here. I've got my mineral spirits on here, and I'm pulling that out really carefully. And there's one right here, and I'm pulling that out. And then if it starts to have too much of a line, you can just blend it a little bit. Okay, clean your brush, put your mineral spirits with mineral spirits, and put your medium on it, and you're going to come down and you're going to just do wherever you think there's a shadow. So this petal is on top of that one, I put a shadow there. This petal kind of goes down here behind this one, so I put a shadow there. I'm using the pompadour. I'm just pulling a little pompadour across. This one is below that one, so I'm putting a little shadow there, okay? And finally, I'm going to do it on any of the edges that need it. Just add a little more color to it. It's very little side-loaded color that you're putting on here. Now, one last thing you can do, clean your brush really, really well. And over here, you can pull out where, just go in with the clean brush. This is the mineral spirits on the brush, and just take your brush and pull that color away from the edge. Pull the color here. Wherever you think there's a petal on top, you can put the petal back on top by just pulling a little of the color out here. Okay. And then I think that this turnover on top is a little too nude, so I'm just going to put a little bit of color up there. I got another. There, okay. Now, the only thing we haven't touched, and you can do the same thing with the leaves. If you think that this leaf, for instance, or this one needs to have a little color removed, you can go through with that brush that's been dipped in the mineral spirits, and you can clean it up a little bit. And finally, we're going to do the middle. I'm going to take my yellow brown. I'm going to go through the middle just to add the color back. And then I'm going to take and side load with a little bit of my darkest brown. And I'm only going to do the bottom where I think that there's a shadow. So here, put a little more on here. And over on this one, we're going to put it right here. Let me get a little more color for you there. Oh, a little too much. If that happens to you, just put it on your paper towel and wipe it out. Okay. Now you're almost done with the second fire. The other thing I would do now is with your liner. Clean your liner real well. Add a little oil. Get into the darkest brown that you have and touch up any of those dots that you've killed while you've been working on the flower, wherever there are flower dots that you didn't have. Or if the center got messed up, you can put it in a little darker. You can add the little edges to it. Another thing you can do, and this is a little tricky, so you come into the center where those dots are. Watch this carefully. I'm doing this backhanded. You wiggle a little and pull back. Really quick. Wiggle a little and pull back. It will help separate those petals for you at the base. Wiggle a little and pull back. Wiggle a little and pull back. Same thing here. And we'll do it over here. Wiggle, pull back, This is with the darkest brown that you have. Start where the dots are and pull out really quick. Lift as you go because you don't want to, oh, I'm sorry, I've got that glare on there. And that will give you like a nice separation of those petals. So you pretty much have everything covered as far as color now. You can, if you want, do the outside border. That's entirely up to you. If you decide you want to do the outside border, let me just fix this spot right here. It just needs a little something there. You can experiment with color. You can try, here's Copenhagen. This is what this would look like on the outside border. And I'm just painting it in, painting from the center to the outside like that. Now I kind of like that, but if you want to experiment, let's say you think pompadour might look nice, and you use a larger brush for this. If you have a 10, it's perfect. Here's a pink on the outside border. And that's what the pink on the outside border would do for it. You might also decide you want a green, and it's really up to you what you decide. If you want a green, like an olive green, which is a warm brown green, this is what you would get. So I would say, you know, play. You don't have to do it on this fire. You can fire it and then do it. And that's what the green would look like. But decide what you want for your border. If you can paint your border and then hold it by the bottom of the plate to put it in your kiln, that's great. If not, you might want to wait on the border and just put this in the kiln and fire it. And then next time you can do your border. But your border is probably going to need 2 coats. So I would recommend, if you have the ability to do it this time, that you do it this time. And remember, like I'm wiping off now, I am not going to use all 3 colors, obviously. You can easily wipe off your paints and start over if you don't like what you've done. And you can also start over on this video to see what you've done. Next time, we will go through and just add any final touches if it needs it. We'll see how it fires and see if we need another one. So, I know it's a little unorthodox to do the background first and then to wipe out your flowers and do your flowers. But I think if you do it in that order, in this particular piece, you will end up with very clean final flowers. The focus flower, the middle flower on top, will always be nice and clean. So if you can take a minute and please subscribe and like my page, my video, I would really appreciate it. If you subscribe, you'll also be getting many of the other videos. There are over 25 videos on here showing you all different kinds of China painting techniques on all different kinds of porcelain. So until next time, thank you for watching.